Welcome to Paradigms at paradigms.life, the radio show and podcast that brings you inspiring people with visions of a viable future for life on Earth that includes humans. Hi, I'm Baruch, host of Paradigms. My guest in this episode is very interesting. Firstly, he's a wonderful musician. The music is just brilliant, and his story is quite interesting, and his perspective is quite interesting. I love all the unexpected, amazing stories people tell me doing this show. Okay, let's meet my guest on this episode of Paradigms. Jacques Schwarz-Bart, welcome to Paradigms.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you, Bo.
Nice to meet you. I've been listening to your new record, which is really quite something, the Harlem Suite, and I know you're in Paris right now getting ready to have a bunch of concerts to showcase the music, and it must be exciting.
Absolutely. You know, coming out of COVID, this feels, some days like it was all a mirage, an illusion.
Wouldn't that be nice? and so much is in life an illusion. So,
well, yeah, and especially when you get past 50 years old, your memory becomes like a veil of fluid confusion.
I like that. Very eloquent. Well,
Thank you.
Before we talk about the music, I just would love to learn a bit about you. I've been reading about you and how you grew up. Both your parents are artists, writers, and so I'm imagining you grew up in an environment where creativity was encouraged and explored.
Yes, indeed. And my parents are both such poets in a normal conversation. If anyone wanted to study writing, they could just be a fly on the wall and listen to them conversing about just about anything. It was really amazing.
What were the conversations like in your house that switched you on?
Actually, it's really not any conversation that switched me on, because I was kind of adverse to verbal communication for the longest time. I was born still or dead, as they say, and I think it probably made me wary of the life of humans in general, and I decided to talk later on. Although when I started talking, my mother says that I spoke like a man right away. That showed her that I was able to understand for the longest time, but. I was not really engaged in too many conversations. On the other hand, I loved music from the very first day. As a matter of fact, I came to consciousness to the music of Christmas in the Caribbean because I was in the ICU section of the hospital, and of course there was nobody to greet me. It was the middle of the night, so I guess up until the morning, what greeted me in this world was that Caribbean music, and music has been really my most loyal companion and my utmost source of inspiration at every turn ever since.
What an interesting way to enter the world, being revived immediately.
It was precisely not immediate. That's why. I was kind of left for dead from what they said to me.
Whoa!
They didn't expect me to see the light of day. This is why it took so long for anyone to actually interact with me in the morning.
Well, I'm not going to ask you any more boring questions after an introduction like that. So the music, how does it come to you? You just hear it? You make it? Do things inspire? Do you hear sounds that? How does it work in your brain?
So it's a collision between the musical experience and life in general, and how you connect your emotions as a human being to, melodies, rhythms, and melodies, and harmony, or composition, and how the two become one, and if you don't listen to a lot of music, it's hard to hear music. But then once you listen to a lot of music, play a lot of music, if you're not in touch with your feelings and your emotions, then you cannot be a conduit. So yeah, it's a collision, a fusion between the two.
So you're this organism that experiences and transforms and then puts it back out.
Actually, yeah, it's basically life transformed into sounds.
I'm talking with Jacques Schwarz-Bart, saxophonist, about his new record, The Harlem Suite, and about his life. And as you've already heard, pretty interesting person, just the way he came into this world. How does that shape a person? Anyway, let's hear some of the music from The Harlem Suite, Jacques Schwarz-Bart, From Gore to Harlem. You're listening to Paradigms at paradigms.life. From Gore to Harlem, Jacques Schwarz-Bart from the Harlem Suite, and he's talking about these songs. We'll be hearing more of the songs that Jacques talks about in the interview, but let's get back to my conversation with him now. Here's some more about this new record. So let's talk about the Harlem Suite. What inspired this set of music?
So as you might know, most of my work prior to the Harlem Suite was focused on connecting Afro-Caribbean rhythms to jazz, modern jazz language. But in the meanwhile, I was still like a full member of that New York jazz scene, which inspired me as well. And inspired me not only to, develop my jazz language as a saxophone player, but also compose in that modern style as well. Although I always took the time to inject all my sensitivity as an Afro-Caribbean man as well. And those compositions started shaping up into a complete story after a while, and of course they were written in the span of close to 2 decades that I lived in Harlem. And in hindsight, especially the last 3 years that I was in Harlem and I was playing with Mark Carey in his own Harlem project, and he asked me to bring some of my tunes, and he was so excited about what I had written. I realized that maybe I had something on my hands, and when I dug into my papers and everything, I found more little nuggets of life, I realized it was really almost like a book of short stories, musical short stories that documented somehow some moments of enlightenment, whether they might be of musical nature or simply a reaction to something beautiful that happened, or something striking, sometimes sad, or a meditation, sometimes on the tragedies of history, like from Gore to Harlem, which is an evocation of the departure of all those Africans in slave ships, and that spread all around the Americas, and so many of them ended up in Harlem in the end, and Central Park North, which is the idea of taking the walk from Midtown and seeing the landscape change totally once you get past 110th Street, and you see a degradation of everything, the quality of life, the buildings, the way people dress. It's quite shocking, especially 20 years ago. It was still kind of a ghetto still. Now it's been quite gentrified, or at least it's more of a urban mix of different people. You have quite a few uppity places as well in there now. But when I first entered Harlem, it was the Harlem of old. You have that tune, Central Park West by John Coltrane, that feels like a bliss in the middle of this very opulent quarters of Harlem, and I wanted to pay tribute to what's going on north of Central Park.
More of the old way it has been.
Yes, or you have a tune like Twisted, for instance, that is a rendition of many encounters that I had in Harlem with people who seemed twisted inside out by whatever life had thrown at them. And you can see it in the way their body is kind of bent in a strange way. Yet when you have a conversation, which I try to have any chance I got, those are the same people who actually give you a reason to live and celebrate life.
You said short stories, and I was thinking of paintings. These are also very much like paintings. I mean, for me to experience music is very visual in my brain. So I close my eyes and just see shapes and colors.
That makes sense. It is basically about contrasted sequences that tell a story together.
We'll be back with more of my conversation with Jacques Schwarz-Bart, but now we're going to hear another track from the Harlem Suite. This is Central Park North. Central Park North from the Harlem Suite, Jacques Schwarz-Bart. Isn't that great? Wow. All right, here's the next part of the conversation I had with Jacques. In bringing this, through you and to us, and whatever that experience is like for you, which is probably lots of different things, between composing and then performing pieces you've composed, traveling in the world, seeing lots of different situations. I guess I want to ask you, really, the big question I'm most curious about is, what are you learning in this life? What matters?
What matters is first of all being a good person, and that means being supportive of others and building other people up. What matters now as an artist is to pursue the quest, to stay on that trail that was not blazed, and that you have to keep discovering and opening with every step, maintaining your child's heart and sensitivity, that ability to feel awe.
What awes you?
Actually, a lot of very simple things like light, flowers, children. Beyond that, I am a big fan of astrophysics. So all the concepts that put us in somewhat confrontation with a reality that is so inconceivably great and immense is absolutely astounding to me, and all the phenomena that take place that we can actually discover year after year that connect us basically to a reality that started 30.7 years back, and could extend to infinity. Possibly it just boggles my mind, and I'm in awe constantly of any description that I see. I'm an avid reader and follower of Neil deGrasse Tyson and a few other great astrophysicians, and this is. I would probably be an astrophysician if I was not a musician.
I'm right with you. I think the cosmos is amazing. I mean, it's such an obvious statement, but to look at the night sky and see it not as a flat dome above us, we know it isn't, but to realize the infinite depth of what you're looking at. If that doesn't put things into perspective, I just don't know what could.
I really contend that if astrophysics was taught early on and was part of the central curriculum, it would teach so much early on, like humility, perspective, just a sense also of almost, infinite respect for life. Because although we know that it has to be out there, it's still very rare. We would probably cherish it in a way that we don't right now, and including all forms of nature that's maintain the balance of the ecosystem that we are part of.
I think you're right. If astrophysics were taught early on, if we were really taught as children, here's where you are and here's what you're made of, and we're all this, I think it would preclude a lot of what is taught now that keeps people in fear. But how do you regard and deal with fear in yourself and other people? Because I ask that because I think it's our limiting factor.
The great advantage to the births that I had to go through is I don't fear death anymore. And any day that I live is just a bonus. So I take very few things for granted. I approach pretty much everything in my life the same way.
I think that's brilliant. I think fear of death is what drives religion and what drives greed and what drives even cruelty to others, is the fear of losing one's own whatever it is, forever, life, comfort, whatever people fear losing.
Not only that, but putting your own life above everyone else's is probably a great source of evil, you know.
I'm talking with Jacques Schwarz-Bart about his inspirations. And now we're going to hear a couple of more tracks from the Harlem Suite, starting out with Twisted. This is Paradigms at paradigms.life. That one's called Time Travel. And before that, Twisted from the Harlem Suite, Jacques Schwarz-Bart's new record. And now here is the final part of my conversation with Jacques. You travel, you play music, you get to witness people opening themselves to your music. I mean, maybe when you're playing, you're very much in your own, I would imagine you're in your own altered state, your own place you go to. But what is your experience in bringing vibrations to people, of transformational vibrations? What do you experience happening?
I feel like beyond any other type of arts, I think music has the magical touch of bringing everyone together. You know, when I play a concert and everybody can feel the same emotion, same excitement at the same moment, the same sadness, the same intensity. I see all kinds of conversations spark between people that didn't know each other after the concert, and then we all gather and we just basically, you know, exchange at a very basic level and experience joy of just being together and celebrating. And I think that's why, you know, live music is such a special experience.
Life is a jam session, right?
Yeah, I would totally see it that way. Yeah. At least it should be lived that way. I'm afraid that it's not a universal value right there.
No, I think it isn't.
A lot of people don't even know the concept of jam session, let alone being able to apply it to one's life. But
oh goodness. Well, I have one last question for you. This
Yes.
is and I make these up as I go. You know, I really don't come in with planned stuff most of the time because I want to see
That's
what's going to
great.
happen, you know?
Absolutely.
So my question is, and a lot of this is I want listeners to feel inspired. I want listeners to take from all of this permission. Tell me, have you ever had an experience of encountering a person who you saw holding themselves back and then you saw them stop doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, sometimes you have like an entire audience that seems to be holding back because everybody is you know, aware of being observed by the others. So and then you have a little group that finally lets loose and expresses something, you know, reacts to the music, and then, you know, by the third or fourth song, you have the entire audience, you know, just expressing themselves freely, and by the end of the concert, everybody is on their feet and yell, you know, people with three-piece suits and a tie, you know.
I love it.
It's really fun to see how liberating the musical experience can be.
I love that because it says that firstly we're all connected, and this thing, this permission moves from person to person. We could say it's infectious,
Yeah.
which speaks really well to the possibilities of some of the really big changes that we're working on as humanity. I mean, I wouldn't say catching on, they've caught on, but it speaks to the reality that these things can really become prevalent, the ethos of respect and kindness and sustainability and natural affinity and being in love with and engrossed with the nature of this planet of which we are a part. So I love that. I'm imagining you're playing and you're watching this sort of spread like a little flame throughout the group.
Absolutely.
That is so cool.
People giving themselves license to feel is truly the greatest musical experience that you can ever have. And I remember my last concert in New York last week. Several people came and they had tears in their eyes, and I was like, well, mission accomplished. We felt something together. That's the whole goal, you know.
It's beautiful. Wow, that's beautiful. Brother Jacques, I wish I were in Paris this week.
Well, this planet is smaller than they say, so I'm sure we bound to cross paths at some
Oh,
point.
yes. Well, I'm in Jamaica. Come to Jamaica.
Oh, absolutely. You're on, my brother.
Okay. Thank you so much for talking with me and for the music and just for what you're bringing into the world in that infectious way.
Thank you, Bahu. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to the next time.
Jacques Schwarz-Bart, thank you so much for the music and the really interesting conversation. I really love this music. It's, that incredible traveling music. You can just go places with this. So thank you for bringing it through you and sharing it with us. If you'd like to know more about Jacques, his website is brotherjacques.com. Brother, JACQUES.com. Check him out. And if you enjoyed this episode of Paradigms, check out our website, paradigms.life. We're just finishing up our 14th year of shows. We'll be starting our 15th year in June. So check out the back catalog and keep listening. And remember, you can find Paradigms wherever you find your podcasts. Stitcher, Spreaker, iTunes, FM Player, iHeartRadio, all those places. All right. I am going to leave you with one more track from the Harlem Suite. This one's called Dreaming of Freedom. And let's let that be the word for the week. Freedom. What is it? What does it mean? Check out Khalil Gibran's comments on freedom in The Prophet. All right. Baruch signing off for this episode of Paradigms. We'll see you next time with more inspiring people. Until then, experience freedom, whatever that means to you, in whatever ways you can, and be well. You've been listening to Paradigms at paradigms.life.